think it's good. Hare Krishna. So this morning, since it is one day before Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's divine appearance, we're going to also be speaking about him. And His Holiness Per Krishna Das Goswami will be giving class tonight and then tomorrow night, and I believe Irmala tomorrow morning. So we'll be able to absorb ourselves more in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes, which are ever expanding and ever overflowing. And I had the good fortune of just hearing and meditating on Lord Chaitanya this whole week. And now I'm like, what to present. There's so much. So basically, I'm going to read the summary from the third, the Adi Leela, third chapter, which explains what are the external reasons the Lord comes. And then from the fourth chapter, what are the internal reasons? And if there's not any time for the wonderful pastimes, I'll leave that to Srila Gurudev. But I want to at least, first let us get a firm footing. Where are we, and who is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? Why has he come? And what is his external and internal mood? Of course, these are beyond our limited understanding, but just by hearing, we become purified just by hearing about the Lord and his pastimes and his associates. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Gopijana Vallabha Girivadit Hari Gopijana Vallabha Girivadit Hari Yasodhanandana Prajajanaranjana Yasodhanandana Prajajanaranjana Yamuna Tira Panachari Yamuna Tira Panachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Ram Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Rama Rama Ram Hare Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya, Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada. Nitai Gora Haribo, 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 Nitai Gora Haribo. Nitai Gora Haribo, 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 Nitai Gora Haribo. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Shri Gaurnitai ki jai, Shri Shri Radha Golokananda ki jai, Shri Gaura Purnima ki jai. Jai Om Vishnu Pad Paramahamsa Pavakatorios Totara Sata Shri Srimad. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Om Vishnu Pad Paramahamsa Pavakatoriya Astotara Sata Shri Srimad. His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Ananti Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Namachara Sridas Thakur ki jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya. Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakund Radhakund Giri Govardhan ki jai. Shri Vrindavana Dham ki jai. Mathura Dham ki jai. Mayapur Dham ki jai. Navadvip Dham ki jai. Yamuna Maya ki jai. Ganga Maya ki jai. Shmati Tulasi Devi ki jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. So I offer my respects unto all the devotees here and to Srila Prabhupada, all our previous acharyas, and pray to be able to share with you some of the wonderful realizations and understanding of the glorious parents of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So I'm going to begin just to read a little bit from the summary from Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi 3, the external reasons for the appearance of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So this Chaitanya Charitamrita is so very important for us to really be able to absorb. And Prabhupada said it's a graduate study. And it is actually through the teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that we learn what it means to engage in devotional service. That's why it said that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he's a bhajan guru, meaning that he's teaching us what is the process of devotional service. And within the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there'll be so many different interactions that he has with different devotees that teaches us in many different circumstances about behavior in devotional life. It's also said that the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is like an appendix, like Krishna comes and he performs his leelas, very beautiful leelas that attract the heart of all living entities. And then Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes. He comes in the same manvantara that when Krishna comes. And this is very, 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 very rare. It's extremely rare that Lord Chaitanya comes and performs these pastimes. So we're very, very fortunate that somehow or other we are here when it's not that long ago that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu actually appeared. So that is to our a very, very, very good fortune. And so it's explained that the Chaitanya Leela is also like an appendix, because as we'll see when we speak about the internal reasons for Lord Chaitanya coming, is that Krishna has unfulfilled desires that even he himself cannot fulfill. And in order to fulfill those unfulfilled desires, to understand the love of, excuse me, Maharaj was like sitting there. It's like class going on. Maharaj is sitting there. It seems like an unusual time. Anyway, it's just hard to focus with a lot going on like that. I did say Lord Chaitanya came to teach us the etiquette of Vaishnavas. Anyway, getting back to the point, I'm tolerant, but it's just funny. But anyway, getting back to the point, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he came in order to taste the love of Srimati Radharani, to understand his own beauty. And these can only be understood. Krishna could only understand these things in Gaura Leela. So I'm going to go back to beginning the external reasons and then go on. In this chapter, the author has fully discussed the external reasons for the descent of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna, after displaying his pastimes as Lord Krishna, thought it wise to make his advent in the form of a devotee to explain personally the transcendental mellows of reciprocal service and love exchange between himself and his servants, friends, parents, and fiancés. So the Lord can easily come to annihilate the demons. He doesn't have to come himself. He can send his partial incarnations and his representatives, his expansions of Lord Vishnu, but only in his original form of Nandanandana Krishna can the Lord actually have these loving, wonderful exchanges with the Vaishnava devotees, with the devotees of the Lord, only when he comes in these forms. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he's coming so that he can actually have these reciprocal exchanges with those in Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya, and Madhurya. According to the Vedic literature, the foremost occupational duty for humanity in this age of Kali is Nam Sankirtan, or congregational chanting of the holy name of the Lord. The incarnation for this age especially preaches this process, but only Krishna himself can explain the confidential loving service performed in the four principal varieties of loving affairs between the Supreme Lord and his devotees. Lord Krishna therefore personally appeared with his plenary portions as Lord Chaitanya. As stated in this chapter, it was for this purpose that Lord Krishna appeared personally in Navadvip in the form of Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So the Lord comes, he comes with his Angas, Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Shivas, and then Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, the associates of the Lord. So the Lord is so kind. He comes so that the devotees can taste these different loving relationships. Now, in Krishna Leela, we find there are many different aspects of Krishna's pastimes that also are present in Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's. Krishna has his Bala Leela, his childhood Leela, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also has his Bala Leela, his childhood Leela. And he also is very extremely mischievous when he comes in his Bala Leela and causes so much havoc. But we find in Krishna Leela, Mother Yasoda at times will punish Krishna for breaking the milk pot and tie him up. And in Gaura Leela, Krishna breaks all the pots in his house, and Mother Sachi doesn't punish him. So we see that Gaura Leela is even more merciful. So the same way in our life, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he doesn't accept the offenses. So that is why also we chant the Panchatattva mantra before chanting Hare Krishna because of the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which is so very, very important. So if we have time, we'll go into some of these Bala pastimes. He also has his Paganda pastimes, as Krishna does. His Paganga pastimes is from 5 until 10. And during those times, he begins to develop his very bright intellect, his intelligence, in so many different ways. And then he has his Kishore pastimes. His Kishore pastimes are his very beautiful pastimes. And at that time, he's married to Lakshmi Priya, Vishnu Priya. But the one difference we see between these two Leelas is that externally, Krishna is manifesting his loving relationships with the gopis of Vrindavan. And it's explained that Lord Chaitanya, once he gets to the Kishore age, he never jokes with the women. He's married and he doesn't have that relationship. And there are some, it's called Sahaja groups, that they're, will give this, oh, actually, Lord Chaitanya had loving relationships with the Brahmin women. But no, he doesn't. He's that beautiful Brahmin boy who is very absorbed in different ways, but does not have those external relationships. So I'm going to continue reading. Krishnadas Kaviraj has herein presented much authentic evidence from Srimad Bhagavatam and other scriptures to substantiate the identity of Lord Chaitanya with Sri Krishna himself. He has described bodily symptoms in Lord Chaitanya that are visible only in the person of the Supreme Lord, and he has proved that Lord Chaitanya appeared with his personal associates, Sri Nityananda, Advaita Gadadhar, Srivas, and other devotees, to preach the special significance of chanting Hare Krishna. So in order for people to understand that he's actually Krishna, there has to be evidence given from the scriptures. So in this third Adi Lila 3, the different evidence are given of how he is actually the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which is very important to understand because otherwise there are so many incarnations that can come and they can claim that I'm God or I'm Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Now the one thing is that anyone can come and preach. Krishna can send any of his, like we said before, partial incarnations to come and to preach, but only the Lord himself can give this highest taste. So when he gives the Sankirtan movement, his external and his internal are actually related with each other because he's giving this Prema Sankirtan. And it's explained that in the chanting of the holy name, that one can experience this highest love, this highest prema. And the chanting, as we know, is done congregationally through Sankirtan, devotees hearing and chanting together in ecstasy, or even when one is chanting their japa, that they're connecting in that way with this loving relationship. And this is a special mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that he's come to present this highest love, this highest prem Nag Sankirtan. And that is a difference between, I was listening to a class and it was explaining how, I think it was Indradumna Swami was speaking about it, how, or actually it was Satyananda Maharaj. I was listening to a class and he was saying how there were different people that chanted kirtan that came to him and they said, you Gaudiya Vaishnavas, you have something that we don't have. Like we chant, but when we chant, we see it as a meditation. But when you're chanting with devotion and love for Krishna. So what you experience and you have to give when you chant is something different. So that is the teaching that Lord Chaitanya has given us, is to actually chant with a mood of devotion and crying out to Krishna, crying out to Radha and Krishna to be engaged in their service. The Vedas and Puranas foretell the appearance of Lord Chaitanya, but still sometimes called significantly the concealed descent of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So externally, we see that Advaitacharya, who was actually Mahavishnu, he realized that the age had become already so covered over by impersonalism, denying the personality of the Lord, that only the Supreme Lord himself in his original form could come. So we know Krishna has his original form in Vrindavan, Brajananda in Vrindavan. It's his original form, and all other forms are expansions of that. So actually, when we worship Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as our deity, we are worshiping Lord Chaitanya in his household stage of life. He has his bala time, as we said, childhood pastimes, his paganda time, and he has his kishore time. So we're worshiping him with his long flowing curly hair, his lotus eyes, his upraised arm, ushering in the Sankirtan movement in ecstasy dancing. And we're actually not, the original form that we worship is not actually Lord Chaitanya and Jagannath Puri in his form of separation, but that form in Nadia. It said that just how Krishna has his original form that's in Vrindavan that never leaves, Lord Chaitanya never leaves Vishwambar Mishra. He never leaves Navadvip Dham. So I'm going to read a little more. Advaitacharya was contemporary of Lord Chaitanya's father. He felt sorry for the condition of the world because even after Lord Krishna's appearance, no one had an interest in devotional service to Krishna. This forgetfulness was so overwhelming that Advaita Prabhu was convinced that no one but Lord Krishna himself can enlighten people about devotional service to the Supreme Lord. Therefore, Advaita requested Lord Krishna to appear as Lord Chaitanya. Offering tulsi leaves and Ganges water, he cried for the Lord's appearance. The Lord, being satisfied by his pure devotees, descends to satisfy them. As such, being pleased by Advaitacharya, Lord Chaitanya appeared. We know that Advaitacharya calls the Lord to appear, and he also tells the Lord when it's time to leave. So this is inconceivable for us, how Advaitacharya is really non-different, but he is taking this particular role, and he's calling Lord Chaitanya to please come, because only Krishna himself can bring that highest love, that highest prem that takes place within Vrindavan. So I'm just going to read one or two verses from here, and then I'm going to go on to the next chapter. So this is still about the external reasons. Krishna Varnam Tudasdanam Sangopaskas Parshadam Yagnai Katanam Praya Vishantihi Sumeda Saha. In the age of Kali, intelligent persons perform congregational chanting to worship the incarnation of Godhood, who constantly sings the name of Krishna. Although his complexion is not blackish, he is Krishna himself. He is accompanied by his associates, servants, weapons, and confidential companions. And then we'll go to verse number 58. By performing the sacrifice of congregational chanting of the holy name, learned scholars in the age of Kali worship Lord Krishna, who is non-blackish because of the great upsurge of the feelings of Srimati Radharani. He's the only worshipful deity for the Paramahamsas who have attained the highest stage of the fourth order sannyas. May that Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Chaitanya, show us his causeless mercy. And I'm going to go on to 63. The sinful life of the living beings results from ignorance. To destroy that ignorance, he has brought various weapons, such as his plenary associates, his devotees, and the holy name. So in this day and age, Krishna's not slaying the demons in the same way he did in Krishna Lila, but through the chanting of the holy name. Go on to verse 81. Raising his arms, chanting the holy names, and looking upon all with deep love, he drives away all sins and floods everyone with love of Godhead. So there's so many beautiful um, pastimes that explain the beauty of the Lord and different poets that have written about him. How beautiful was his form, his beautiful arms, his long flowing hair, his sweet smiling face, his peaceful demeanor. Of course, when he was young, he wasn't peaceful. He was causing mischief. But in this particular Leela, may the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in the form of Lord Sri Chaitanya, bestow his causeless mercy upon us. His smiling glance at once drives away all the bereavements of the world, and his very words enliven the auspicious creepers of devotion by expanding their leaves. Taking shelter of his lotus feet, invokes transcendental love of God at once. So we're very fortunate, actually, by the mercy of our Srila Prabhupada, that he came and brought these teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to the West. And Srila Prabhupada had so much faith in his spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and so much faith in the teachings of Sri Chaitanya. And if you listen, if you go online and you listen a lot to Srila Prabhupada's bhajans, he sings so often the different songs of our previous acharyas that glorify Lord Chaitanya, glorify Nityananda, Gauranga Balite Have. So many beautiful um, bhajans he sings, and it's through these bhajans that we can actually develop that mood, of a mood of a devotee. And we can hear sometimes when Prabhupada is singing about Lord Chaitanya, how actually tears come to his eyes and he cries. And there's that famous story that is spoken about how when he came to Atlanta and the devotees there had been distributing Prabhupada's books, and he saw the beautiful form of Gornitai and also a very similar form in Miami. And when he saw those deities and he started singing Parama Karuna, that Prabhupada just broke out in tears and ecstasy, because how merciful is Lord Chaitanya that he was able to come and plant, that seed of devotion in the heart of those that had no interest in love of God. This is the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So I'm going to go on now to the internal reasons, because the external reasons are things that happen, but it's explained that it's actually incidental how it takes place. So I'm going to start first by reading again the summary, because time is limited and there's so much to share. In this chapter of the epic Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami has stressed that Lord Chaitanya appeared for three principal purposes of his own. So the Lord is independent. He comes because he wants to come. So this is the first purpose. The first purpose was to relish the position of Srimati Radharani, who is the prime reciprocator of transcendental love of Sri Krishna. Lord Krishna is a reservoir of transcendental loving transactions with Srimati Radharani. The subject of those loving transactions is the Lord himself, and Radharani is the object. Thus, the subject, the Lord, wanted to relish the loving mellow in the position of the object, Radharani. So Lord Krishna, he's the object, he's where all the love is going. And Srimati Radharani is experiencing that love. But Krishna, he, he can't experience it in that form. And that's why I said that the Gaura Lila is the appendix to Krishna Lila, because Krishna's thinking, how can I experience this? First he comes to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu because he was thinking, for a long time I have not descended. And it had become the time when it was due for the Lord to descend. But at the same time, he had these three desires. So that's why there's the external and the internal reason. The second reason for his appearance was to understand the transcendental mellow of himself. Lord Krishna's all sweetness. Radharani's attraction for Krishna is sublime, and to experience that attraction and understand the transcendental sweetness of himself, he accepted the mentality of Radharani. And Krishna tried to understand that sweetness in Krishna Lila. He tried in many different ways. We know in 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 Dwarka Lila, Krishna even saw a reflection of himself in a pool, and he was thinking, who is this beautiful boy? He's so beautiful. I'd like to hug him like Radharani. So he was attracted to his own form. And in Mathura Lila, he tried to understand, who is this beautiful form? And the example is given in the Lalita Madhava, how there was a play put on by the Gandharvas. And because Krishna was feeling so much separation from the residents of Vrindavan, so they put this play on. And in the play, this Narada Muni went and arranged, this was in Mathura, arranged for the Gandharvas to come. And onto the stage comes this beautiful Krishna. And then Krishna's sitting with Madhu Mangal, and he's like, is that Krishna on the stage? And am I an actor here seeing him? Or is this Krishna? Am I Krishna? So he was bewildered. He saw that beautiful form, that sweetness, but he couldn't understand it. And he knew that only Radharani really tastes and understands that sweetness. So in order to be able to do that, he actually takes on that form of Gauranga. And a preliminary example of this is given that actually when Krishna was in Vrindavan, and one time Radharani actually left, and Krishna was missing her so much that he ran, and you can go there today to Imli Tala. There's a place where Krishna sat under a tree, and Krishna was crying and missing Radharani so much that he turned golden. And he turned golden, looked like Radharani, and he was calling out for Radharani, calling out and crying for Radharani. But still, he could not taste it to the full extent. The third reason that Lord Chaitanya appeared was to enjoy the bliss tasted by Radharani. The Lord thought that undoubtedly Radharani enjoyed his company, and he enjoyed the company of Radharani. But the exchange of transcendental mellow between the spiritual couple was more pleasing to Srimati Radharani than to Sri Krishna. So Krishna was thinking that she is enjoying more than I am, and I can't really understand this, because it was explained that the gopis of Vrindavan, they have no other desire but to please Krishna. They've given up everything. They gave up their home, they gave up their family, they gave up their reputation. They didn't care. They just wanted to please Krishna. And Krishna realizes that how can I ever repay them for what they've done? How can I ever reciprocate? The only way I could reciprocate with them is by their love. So Krishna is seeing that they have this love that he cannot experience. The only way that he could experience it is to actually take on that mood of Srimati Radharani. That's the only way he'll be able to experience it. And also, they also experience this incredible separation, this vipralamba, this separation, which we were speaking about in class yesterday in Ramananda Samvat. And that is also very unique to our Gaudiya tradition. So only when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his Ancha Lila goes into that mood of separation, is he actually repaying the gopis, because now he is experiencing that intense feeling of separation. Okay. Krishna is a transcendental male, and Radharani is a transcendental female. Therefore, to know the transcendental pleasure of loving Krishna, Lord Krishna himself appeared as Lord Chaitanya, accepting the emotions and bodily luster of Srimati Radharani. So, of course, it's understood that Radha and Krishna are one. And Radharani is the Ladini Shakti, the internal pleasure potency of Krishna, who appears, and then there's two, and they enjoy loving pastimes. But then in Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they again become one. Lord Chaitanya appeared in order to fulfill these confidential desires and also to preach the special significance of chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And to answer the call of Advaita Prabhu, these were secondary reasons. So it's explained that his first reason is to fulfill these confidential desires. And his second reason is to spread the chanting of the holy names. Now, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he only would manifest these internal reasons when he was in the association of very close devotees. Externally, he performed the Sankirtan Yagna. But we can also understand that the Sankirtan Yagna also has its internal aspect. Lord Chaitanya was always internally absorbed. And when the devotees absorb themselves in the Sankirtan Yagna, they can experience this higher taste and develop pure love of Radha and Krishna. This chapter also specifically describes the difference between lust and love. So Srila Prabhupada was always very careful when presenting the pastimes of Radha and Krishna to really elaborate on the difference between lust and love, that the love of the gopis is pure. There is no lust there, and it is only to want to please Krishna. So I'm going to read a few verses from chapter 4, Adi Leela. Although this is true, this is but the external reason for the Lord's incarnation. Please hear one other reason, the confidential reason for the Lord's appearance. The scriptures proclaim that Lord Krishna previously descended to take away the burden of the earth. That was text 7, this is 8. To take away this burden, however, is not the work of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The maintainer, Lord Vishnu, is the one who protects the universe. By the time to lift the burden of the world mixed with the time for the Lord's incarnation, when the complete Supreme Personality of Godhead descends, all other incarnations of the Lord meet together within him. At that time, therefore, Lord Vishnu is present in the body of Lord Krishna, and Lord Krishna kills the demons through him. Thus, the killing of the demons is but secondary work. I shall now speak of the main reason for the Lord's incarnation. The Lord wanted to taste the sweet essence of the mellows of love of God, and he wanted to propagate devotional service in the world on the platform of spontaneous attraction. Thus, he is known as supremely jubilant and is the most merciful of all. So Krishna explains that many worship him through the different rules and regulations of Vaidhi, but it's actually the spontaneous love of the residents of Vrindavan that really attracts him. Lord Krishna thought, all the universe is filled with the conception of my majesty, but love weakened by that sense of majesty does not satisfy me. So Krishna's not so pleased by this Aishwarya. We know that when Lord Brahma was offering him many prayers, Krishna was just thinking he wanted to get back and play with his boyfriends. He wanted to have fun. So it's all these prayers are not so pleasing. Of course, it doesn't mean that we're supposed to disregard the rules and regulations because we're not in that level, but we should understand what is the goal in our life. If one regards me as a supreme Lord and himself as subordinate, I do not become subservient to his love, nor can it control me. So Krishna is not controlled by this Aishwarya conception. But when one thinks that Krishna is my son, or one thinks that Krishna is my lover or my friend, Krishna becomes controlled by that. In whatever transcendental my devotee worship me, I reciprocate with him. That is my natural behavior. In whatever way my devotees surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. Everyone follows my path in all respects. If one cherishes pure loving devotion to me, think of me as his son, his friend, or his beloved, regarding himself as great and considering me as equal or inferior, I become subordinate to him. So this goes on to explain how pure devotional service is so pleasing to the Lord. And he comes as a form of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he allows the devotees to interact with him. Jagannath Mishra is thinking, this is my son. And when Nimai misbehaves, he feels that he has to correct Nimai. Why are you misbehaving? And one time he even has a dream. And in the dream, a Brahmin comes to me and says, how can you chastise him? How can you chastise him? He's the Supreme Lord. No, he's not the Supreme Lord. He's my son, because his devotion covers over that understanding. He's my son, and I have to chastise him. Otherwise, he won't grow up to behave right. And when they hear the sound of ankle bells, he's not wearing Nupur, but when they hear the sound of ankle bells, they think, oh, our Shalagram Shila, he's come off the altar and he's running through the house. So they can't accept, actually accept that this is actually the Supreme Lord. So within Navadvip Dham, everyone relates with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, not as the Supreme Lord in his early pastimes. He's covered in his early pastimes. And even Advaitacharya, who prayed for him to come, he doesn't realize that it's that Supreme Lord that's come. So his Bala pastimes are extremely, extremely sweet. How he's causing mischief. He's running into the houses of the different ladies, causing havoc. How he's stealing the paraphernalia and telling the young maidens who are worshiping Lord Shiva for a good husband that they should worship him, and they're yelling at him, "No, go away! And we're your sisters. Why are you bothering us?" And he's saying, "No, you should worship me. If you worship me, I'll give you a good husband. You'll have 7 sons. You'll be very rich. Your husband will be handsome. But if you don't worship me, then you'll marry someone who's old and has 4 co-wives." And so they all become really upset. And so then they worship Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But this is all done with such sweetness, because he's wanting to give the mercy to them. He's wanting to give his kindness to them. But it's also explained that this is his Bala Leela, because in his later Leela, he doesn't joke with girls. It's just in his early, up to 5 years old. But a very interesting thing that takes place at this point, actually, is that one day he's there, and Lakshmi Priya comes. At that time, she's just a very young girl, because they're both in their Bala Leela. She comes, and upon seeing each other, they're naturally attracted. But this is attraction of children. And then he tells her, just worship me. I'm the Supreme God. And actually, because she's the Lord's eternal consort, she doesn't fight like the other girls. She immediately offers worship to him. And at that time, he reveals that, in the future, we will be married, because they are eternal consorts like that. So the childhood pastimes are so very sweet. And, Vishwarup takes sannyas. His brother takes sannyas, and his mother is crying and crying. This is in the Bhaganda Leela. His mother's crying and crying, and Vishwarup takes sannyas, and then he tells his parents, "Don't worry, I'll never take sannyas. I'll be grihasta. I'll always stay with you. I'll never leave." So did Lord Chaitanya lie to his mother and father? No, because in the Aprakat Leela in Navadvip, he's there in that form. So there's not much time for pastime, but I wanted to at least establish the foundation to begin with of why we're worshiping Lord Chaitanya, and then the pastimes can be told later in the day. Thank you.
Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Venam Kanbanda Aravinda Layatatam Bhagavatam Samasitam Buddhasundaram Tandar Akom Vidamaniya Kishesha Shobha Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Ananiya Sasakale Priya Priti Manti Vasyanti Vikayanti Viranti Ananda Chinmaya Sadhu Dara Vigrasya Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam.
Namaste, Saraswati Devi, Gurvani Pacha, Nevasesha, Junyavade, Pashachade, Charate. Nevasesha, Junyavade, Pashachade. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Ramana Chananda Shri Advaita Gadada Siva Savi Gaurata Da Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Brahmanicana Shri Advaita Gadada Siva Sati Gaurata Brenda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Advaita Gadada Siva Sati Gaurakranda. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Advaita Gadada Siva Sati Gaurakranda. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Advaita Gadada Siva Sati Gaurakranda. Ate Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama Hare Rama Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Rama Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare Govinda Jaya Gopala Jaya Jaya Ramana Hare Govinda Jaya Jaya Govinda Jaya Gopala Jaya Jaya Ramana Hare Govinda Jaya Jaya Ochibo Hatebo Debo Maribo Nichago Debo Debo Hatibo Naya Rakinana Jaya Rati Jaya Rati Rade Rate Rate Rade Rate Jaya Radhe Jaya Shri Radhe Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahangsa ISKCON bound Bravo Nityananda Shidway Gadadha Shivasri Gaur Bhakta Vrindikajai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Go Radha Sarvatma Snapanam Brahmijaya. Nanamakari Bodhani Sarvachaktish. Tatrapitani Matas Maranai Makala. Etatrasi Bhagavad Mamapi. Nurdai Bami Trishani Hadani Nana Raga. Trinada Peace and Ichena. Roriva Sihishruna. Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Siddhahari Nadanam Najanam Nasundarim Kavitamba Jagadish Kamaye Mama Janmani Janmanishware Bhavatat Bhakti Twaye Ainanda Tanuja Kinkaram Patitam Mam Vishame Bhavam Buddho Kripaya Tapapada Pankacha Stitaduli Sadrasam Vachintaya Nayanam Galudashrudaraya Vadanam Gadgada Rudiya Gida Pulaka Nichitam Bapukada Tavagrahane Bhavishati Jugai Tam Nimishena Chakshusha Prabhashaitam Shunyaitam Jagat Sarvam Govinda Vidahena May Ashlishiva Parapana Pranashtamam Adarshanam Marmatam Karotava Yatadata Vadanatu Lampato Mat Prananata Stu Sevana Paraham. Victory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious. Oh, my Lord, congregational chanting of your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings. And thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you have invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. Oh, my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names, but I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respects to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service, birth after birth. O son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor, yet somehow or other I have fallen into the ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up, and when will the hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I'm feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he should remain so, even if he handles me roughly by his embrace.